Alright guys, so welcome to today's video. In today's video we will continue our work on this JoJo game series right here. Alright, so in the last video we have stopped our work in this DataStore script right here, and we will now continue our work in this one as well. So we have scripted this loading stuff right here. In today's video we are going to do everything about the saving, okay? So how the save function works, and in order to do so I'm going to create a function right here called save. And what we need to save is the player, and that's actually it. Now, what we want to do is that we want to check, first of all, if inside of this table our player has data. Okay, so if our data of this one certain player exists, so if it is existent, so this is the overall requirement. If this requirement isn't met, you cannot even save, okay? Because if this requirement isn't met, it means that the player has no data in the server. Alright, so if this requirement is met, then we want to do the following. So we want to refer to this DataStore, then set async. And the last video I've already I foreshadowed it a little, so about this key, so what this key does. So let me just enter the key we're going to use, and then I'm going to explain the key. Alright, look. So this is how the save function works. And what happens right here is that set async basically sets or saves. Now let's say it assigns this data, which is a table with a bunch of values, to this key, okay? Now, when you wanna access this data again, you need the specific key for it. Okay, so you need to know what kind of key is assigned to this data. Now the thing is with the people's data, okay? So let's say that you have a key which is hello, for example, okay? So hello, HELLO is your key. Now, when you have one player, so in the dimension of only having one player, it is totally fine. So hello as the key for one player. Now, if you have two players, okay? Two players, two data. And if both have the same key, you will have corrupted data. So player 1 ends up having the data of player 2, you know, because they both share the same key. And that is the reason why each player needs its own key. And the best method to do this is to use the user ID. You could try to generate some random numbers, okay? You could do that, but even then, there is still the possibility that two players have the same number at the end, okay? So that's the problem with user-generated keys. Unless you have a way to find out whether the random number you're generating, the random key you're generating, which is not the user ID, is already occupied or not. Okay? If you have a way to do so, then you can do it. But I don't really see the point in trying to create something that complicated when you can just use the player's user ID. So the user ID is unique. Everyone has its own user ID. That's the best way to go with it, okay? That's the reason why we use it. Now, the next thing, so we have just created this save function. Next thing which we want to do is that we want to save, okay? And we want to save on two occasions. So game players, player removing, so when the player leaves. And we also want to save on bind to close. At least that's how I have done it back then. Alright, so the problem with player removing, at least for me, back then, I don't even know if this problem still exists, because I don't really test it out yet. So the problem is that, or at least for me, was that player removing doesn't really fire, at least in studio. In-game, so in Roblox, it works totally fine, but in studio, it doesn't work for me. That's the reason why I used bind to close. So if game get service run service is studio, if it is not studio, then we want to save with this player right here. All right, so this check makes the player's data only save when the player leaves, when the session is not in studio, means it is in game, okay? So this happens when you are not in studio. Now we need this bind to close right here to function when the player is in studio. I don't know why I've added this not right here. So if the session is in studio, then we want to loop through the players tab, and we want to save each player's data. So the difference in between player removing and bind to close is that player removing only is limited to one player. Okay, so when that player leaves, this event is fired. Bind to close is not limited to one player. Bind to close is dedicated to the server. So when a server is close to shut down, then this code runs. All right. So save function is done as well. We could try to use this. Let's actually use it. So I'm gonna print out the loaded data right here. Now look this. Oh wait, so yeah. So first of all, the API services are not enabled. Security, enable this. That's the first thing. Second thing is about the data itself. So we still need to implement a change function, so way on changing the stuff. Otherwise this doesn't make any sense. Okay, so change player what value. So this change function is going to be able to change the data. So what will happen is that we are going to check if this player has data, first of all. That's the first requirement. If that is true, then we want to loop through that data. And we want to check if I equals what. If that is the case, then we want to change v to value. Right, and this is how it works. I'm going to explain this shortly, but before we do that, we're going to insert this bindable function. So this might be a little bit too fast for you right now, but I'm going to explain everything, don't worry. My God. Wait. Right, there we go. So I've written down some stuff to be able to test this out. If it is successful, then I'm gonna explain everything. Don't worry. Okay. First of all, nil. All right. So after 15 seconds, we should receive another. Yeah. There we go. Cache is still at 0. How is this possible? Okay, it didn't change for whatever reason, and that's the reason why I refuse to explain this from the start, because it might have some flaws, you know. Look, but the saving did work. Okay, so we had nil before, so means no data, and now we have data which is loaded. That's good. So the saving works fine. Cache. But why isn't this working? So stand cache. Nah, looks fun. So there is a problem with this part then. Doesn't even make any sense on why this isn't working. It makes 0 sense. So according to this print right here, the value, so this big ass number, is applied. Okay, but according to the print down here, it is not applied. So who can I trust now? Nah, wait, my internet. I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna be back once this is fixed.